Well, hello. Welcome to Our Life Beyond, the podcast where we explore how to navigate and hopefully thrive through some of life's biggest transitions. I'm your co-host, Scott Dibben, and I've teamed up with my great friend and mentor, Connie King, to share some stories, strategies, and insights that helped us adapt to the ever-changing seasons of our life.
Whether your life transition is divorce, death of a loved one, switching careers, moving to a new city, or just trying to figure out what the hell is next, we're with you every step of the way. But always remember, we're not therapists, just fellow travelers with a knack for finding humor in the chaos, and maybe some untraditional method of overcoming what life dishes out to us. Hopefully, you'll have fun embarking on this journey. So now, let's get started.
This episode of Our Life Beyond is proudly sponsored by Habit Coffee Company. Located right off Highway 60 in Rogersville, Habit Coffee is more than just your average coffee shop. They serve up delicious, scratch-made breakfast and lunch options daily. And they even specialize in catering local events. With their state-inspected kitchen and a passion for quality, every visit to Habit Coffee is a treat.
Now that the construction is complete, getting to Habit Coffee is easier than ever. Thank you to Habit Coffee for being a proud sponsor of Our Life Beyond. Make Habit Coffee your new habit today.
Well, hello, Connie.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing good today. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I am really excited about our episode today.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah, we're diving into a dynamic and thought-provoking conversation as we bring you the opposite perspective in our ongoing exploration of political views. So today, our guest is Paul Weddle, an Army veteran, a proud conservative, and advocate for traditional values. He's here to share his views, experiences as a counterpart to the discussion we had with our Harris supporter last week. So here's the deal. Our goal is not to debate, but to create a space where we can understand and appreciate the variety of viewpoints shaping the world around us. We'll be discussing everything from Paul's vision for America's future to the principles that guide his decision-making. This promises to be a fascinating conversation, so let's get to it.
Paul, welcome, and thank you so much for jumping on this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this.
So I think we start off these, Paul, with just giving you maybe 10 minutes, however long it takes for you to just kind of tell us your story, maybe a little bit of background, get to know you a little bit before we start kind of the questioning. So if you want, we'll just turn it over to you and you can start your story.
Okay. Well, I grew up a very staunch Republican, religious right Republican, the quote unquote God's party, and we had that mindset of, they call us the right because we're correct. We're correct on all of the views. That's how I was always raised. And I followed politics from a very early age, became interested in the entire political system. But I started becoming disenchanted with the Republican Party in general. And shortly after 9/11, we were living overseas. We come back home, and then we were there during the event. And whenever we come back home, and you start getting different details of what happened. And I'm a conspiracy. I call it a conspiracy realist. We were not going to talk about that today, but a conspiracy realist. And so things didn't add up, and so I just I really started becoming disenchanted with the Republican Party. There's always we've always been told there's two sides to every story, and I've said for a long time there's actually three sides. There's one side, two side, and then there's the truth. These stories can be aligned perfectly, which rarely happens, but or they can be intertwined in some way. But the bottom line is what's the truth. And I really felt like we weren't getting some of the truthful things on this event, and certainly events in the past as well. So over the years, my views and positions started to change a bit. I'm still very conservative on most everything, but I do have some views and ideas that do lean more on the liberal side. If I had to classify myself as something, I would say that I'm a libertarian, little l. The libertarians, capital L, the Libertarian Party, honestly, is a joke. They can't organize on anything. I think they have some really good ideas, but they really aren't a formidable force in American politics. When it came to the when it came to the presidential race in 2016, I was a big fan of Ron Paul. And I don't know how many of you people know who Ron Paul is. He's a congressman out of Texas, very smart-minded individual. He got into politics. He's a doctor, not a lawyer, politician. Just seen a lot of things that he really felt strongly in. A lot of the things that I believe in, small government, not a lot of government interaction and interference in just personal liberties. And, when I was researching for the 2016 election, I looked at everything I could see. I watched every video I could find on Ron Paul. And there was a clip that came up. I don't know if you guys remember do you remember the Morton Downey Jr. show?
Yes.
He was the ultra conservative talk show host late night. His insult was what was it? Pablum puking liberals. Anybody that was not who he was. He was you were a pablum puking liberal. There was actually a episode where Ron Paul was on there and saying the exact same thing that he was saying in this campaign. So it was his message showed his values. His message showed that he wasn't swayed by the political topic of the day, and so that was really what drew me to Ron Paul. Then, obviously, he didn't get the nomination. Donald Trump got the nomination for 2016. Wasn't a fan of Donald Trump's at all. I thought he was an arrogant, I didn't know him personally, but he certainly came across as an arrogant asshole. I just didn't like him. And of course, I thought it was a joke, just like everybody else did, thought it was a joke. But then I noticed something within this campaign. Not only did the left despise him, but now a lot of people in his own party didn't like him. And these are the career politicians. And when I started noticing that, they all hate him. So you have to ask why. Why? What is so wrong? Because, okay, maybe he's an asshole, maybe he's arrogant. How many other politicians are arrogant assholes? There's a bunch of them, right? So, I started looking into it. I looked into it more, and I did the same thing that I did with Ron Paul, with Donald Trump. I started searching every single thing I could find. I mean, I watched, hours and hours and hours of videos of him, different people, different interviews, way back even into the 70s, with people like Oprah and Larry King and, all of these different ones. And his message stayed the exact same as well, which that was a plus to me. I'm somebody that I like substance. I like consistency. And, I was seeing that in him. And then I listened more to what his message was way back when everybody loved him. I mean, I remember there's a clip of Oprah saying, "You should run for president." And he says, "No, I don't want to do that." And he said, I really enjoy my life. I don't want to do that. And on that episode, the exact same thing that he said, "Well, if you would, what would you do?" And he talked about cleaning up corruption, starting with the city of New York. And of course, they loved it. "Oh, yeah, you really should run. You really should run." Well, it's kind of like saying, if somebody's injured and I say to them, "Hey, if I would take your pain if I could," but I know, deep down, I can't really do that. So it's easy for me to say that. So that's, all of these liberal friends that he had that were telling him, that he should run. Well, they knew at that point he wasn't going to run. When he gets to the point to where he is, they remember what he said he was going to do in cleaning up the corruption. And so then that seems to be what has turned everybody against him. And, and ever since then, I didn't vote for him. I would have, but I had the job that I work, I had to go out of town at the last minute, and I didn't get a chance to vote before I left. But I would have voted for him the first time, but I didn't. But I didn't vote for anybody. But yeah, I just ever since then, is he perfect? Absolutely not. Is he, the savior that, and the religious right is still strong. Christian nationalism is a big thing. And, is he that godly person that they make him, that they want him to be? No, I don't think that at all. But certainly from what I'm seeing and what we've seen in the past 4 years. I mean, he did some really great things for the economy. He did a lot of things for our national security around the country, or around the world. He restored that respect for America, and just the idea that he's the one of the big things that talked about doing was, having all the other United Nations pay their fair share of the bill to, United Nations. And, that he brought that about. And so, yeah, I'm just really pleased with what I've seen. Again, he's not perfect. I don't, I'm not looking through rose colored glasses, but yeah, that's why I voted for him. That's why I will continue to support and be optimistic about our future.
So in 2016, you didn't vote for him. What did you see during his presidency that you really liked in that time, though, after he had won? What were the things that really made you go, oh, hello?
A lot of that is, just the bringing us to a better, other countries respecting us more. The national security, I know the open borders is a big deal. Closing the borders, getting our borders secured. And it's something that immigration is a really hot topic, and everybody wants to beat him down on immigration, but he's not against immigration. He just, says, if you're going to do it, come in the right way. Don't come across the borders illegally. And so securing the borders was big, and then just the things that he was doing with the economy, where, the inflation was low, gas was very low, down into, at one point got near $1 a gallon, so.
First of all, that was a great story, and some of that I knew, Paul, some I didn't. It's interesting. I had forgot that during 9/11, you were basically on your way back into the country. Is that correct?
No, we were actually in South Africa. We were living in South Africa. My mom and dad were visiting us. I think they got into the country, into South Africa on the 9th or 8th or 9th of September. And when it was happening, it was actually at the border going from Swaziland back into South Africa. We had taken the parents around, and we were actually standing at the border whenever the second tower fell.
So it was interesting. I had forgot that you were basically out of country when this was happening. So I'd love to know a little more about being out of country during 9/11, I should say. And did that sway your views toward maybe a Republican party? Because I believe the Republicans, if I'm not incorrect, and the thing is, I haven't done a lot of research on military when we look at Republican parties versus Democrat, but did it sway your view possibly for a Republican being over there and knowing that what was happening over here in America?
No, I don't think so. When I was in the Army, started off under George H.W. Bush, and right after the first invasion of Iraq, after Desert Storm was over, we started a military drawdown. And so there was a lot of, they were reducing the size of the military even back then, and that was under a Republican president. So, I don't think that really, being a Republican or a Democrat really affects the military strength in numbers as much. But I think there's just a level of respect, I think, that, that Trump brought back. There's one instance that, if you read anything about his foreign policies, he actually met with the leader of Al Qaeda, and through the interpreter, he told him that that if there were any Americans who died in that region while he was in office, that Trump tells him that he's going to hold him personally responsible and he's going to kill him. The interpreter was hesitant, as the story goes. The interpreter was hesitant to even say that, and he finally did. And then Trump pulls out a satellite photo of the guy's house and gives it to him and leaves. And so, the result of that, there were no Americans killed in Afghanistan from Al Qaeda strikes. The entire time that Trump was the president. So,
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that story. And, I've always heard it's one of those things that you hear as you grow up and you don't know if it's true that Republicans are going to grow the military Democrats shrink the military. So I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, yeah, and I was in the Army. I started off with HW, and then transitioned into Bill's Army, and there were some cuts, but it was continuing cuts that had been started from the Republican side. So
Okay, that's good to know. So
So,
go ahead, Connie. No, I've got so
Well,
many questions. Go ahead.
okay, so mine are a little less probably factual. It's more of an
okay,
opinion piece on my part.
okay,
So a lot of times we hear from the left certain just it's the same thing over. They say, "Oh, he did this, he did this, he did this." So if we go through some of that stuff, can you kind of throw out your thought process? Because what I'm looking for is
yeah,
I'm looking for our listeners to understand where either you excuse or agree with or deal with certain things that we've heard from the left.
sure,
Okay.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
first thing I'm going to start with, and most of these are probably going to be women's issues. The first thing is, grab them by the pussy. These women let you grab them by the pussy. Tell me your first thought that pops into your mind.
Oh gosh. From what I understand on that, I think it was kind of locker room talk. I think as a guy, I mean, there's a lot. We talk big a lot of times. We say things that probably wouldn't say in front of our wives or whatever. Maybe we would. I don't know. But I don't know. I heard that clip, and it may be true. It may not be. I don't know.
Well, did it offend you? Or was it just a thing where you're like, oh, I've heard this in a locker room. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Or did you? So I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to get slaughtered by the feminists.
Oh.
Come at me, ladies. My first thought with that was absolutely. There are a lot of women who allow that. There are a
hmm
lot of, I've seen it. So for him to say something that was honest and true and raunchy as all get out, for me, I just went, okay, well, that sucks that it's true, but okay.
hmm
So that was my thought. And it's funny from a male perspective, you're like, well, it's locker room talk, I'm
hmm
okay with that. Where in my mind, I'm like, well, that's truth. If you don't like it, you probably ought to talk to some friends around you, ladies. That
Yeah.
that's just my thought. So that's kind of one of my first questions.
Yeah.
What do you think about this Project 2025 and everything that's going down with that? So can you explain a little bit about your knowledge of that and how Trump has anything to do with that, or tell us a little bit about that?
Well, and, I mean, quite honestly, I have not. I couldn't tell you the first thing about Project 2025, other than what I've heard the media say that if this happens, we're doomed. That kind of thing. I don't know any details of it, and I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from really deep diving on political stuff for a while. Just my whole this whole past year has just been crazy. So I honestly I can't even speculate on anything because I don't know anything on it.
So, talking about Project 2025 or anything that Trump didn't say himself, what I don't like, and this is both parties, Republicans do it, Democrats do it. If they tie them to certain people,
Mhm.
they've tied
Yeah.
Trump to. I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna get crucified, but they've tied Trump to every redneck out there. If some
Mhm.
redneck does something and has a Trump sticker, Trump believes that. Trump thinks
Yeah.
that
Right.
that's appropriate. Storming the Capitol, and that may be something we could get to. I don't know that he had a strong enough statement to not do it, but I don't think he said, "Let's go do this, people."
Yeah. No.
But he's going to take the blunt of that because those are his people. And that's what's really going to be
Mhm.
tough for Trump, even this year, is because some shit's going to go down. I still believe this term. And he's going to get blamed for anything that any of us or anybody does that they think has voted for Trump.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I've listened to that whole deal. The whole J6 deal, and it's a farce. I mean, even the weakest argument, I don't think holds water for, was he not strong enough? I would agree with you that probably he wasn't strong enough in what he said, but I mean, he was very clear that he didn't want, he wasn't seeking violence. And so, sometimes if, you can get blamed when you're not clear enough. But yeah, it's that side of this stuff is frustrating.
So do you feel like Trump is, because again, we heard the, grab him by the pussy. We heard, what was the other thing?
The microphone thing.
Oh, sorry. Okay. That's probably something you'd see me do. So I can't even. I must be the raunchiest woman on the planet because this just made me laugh. And I actually had a discussion with Jeff about this
Mhm.
because there are a lot of things where I know that a lot of women, especially, are very fearful of what Trump says because it
Mhm.
is raunchy, it is rude, it is some of those things. Do you believe he believes that based on, because I'm an action person, your
Mhm.
actions show me exactly who you are, not your words. Do you
Right.
believe his actions show different than what he's saying?
Yeah, I think it does. Just everything that I've seen. I don't think that, again, I think a lot of this stuff is just talk, the crudeness. And, he talks about Franklin Graham. And if for those of you who don't know, he's the son of the evangelist Billy Graham, who, Billy Graham was connected to every president. I forget the first one, but I mean, he was an advisor to, probably 6 or 7 presidents. And this is his son. And so, obviously, Billy Graham's passed away. And so now his son is taking over the mantle there, and, is good friends with Trump. And, I heard a speech from Trump where he said something about, Franklin asked him not to cuss, because, in Trump's stuff, he'll doesn't get really vulgar in his speeches, but, he'll say, damn and hell and, all of that. And so, he just, I think it's just who he is. So,
I've got a question now, and we probably should have started with this. In a president, whether they're a Democrat or Republican for you, Paul, what's the core value you're looking for? What do you want that president to be able to achieve in 4 years? What's the most important things you think a president could do?
keeping our nation safe, honestly. I don't care if, I don't care if he's, having an affair with somebody. If he's keeping our nation safe, he's probably doing a good job.
Okay, and that's fair. And, I've said, so I go all the way back to, I think it was 92 and 94 when Ross Perot was
Mhm.
trying to, he was trying to be the nominee. I think he was third party is what he was.
Yeah, he was.
But
Uh-huh.
either way, he was very big because he was a businessman. Of course, he was trying to run the nation as a business. And I think
Right.
some of that needs to happen. I do
Oh,
think somebody
absolutely.
that understands a big business understands our really complex system a lot better than somebody that's never been in business. So that is something big for me. Now, also, you do need to look at their track record. Were they good at business? Did they suck at business? But what's terrible is if you look at some of our greatest or business minds out there, probably they would not touch going for president because they don't want all of their
Mhm.
skeletons brought up. Because let's be honest,
Oh, yeah.
I'm 53. Everybody here's in their 50s. You've probably done some stupid ass shit when you were 18, 19, 20, 21, and some have done more than others. And
Yeah.
if you come from a prominent family or a family with money, you probably even did a lot more. All of that will be drug up and
Sure.
threw in your face because that's the only way they know how to fight. And
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I was, actually had a conversation with my brother, a little bit earlier today, and, he pointed this out. The Democrats are just absolutely ruthless on their attacks to the Republicans. And, the Republicans, they don't really fight back. I'm not saying, I'm not saying we're taking the high ground. Well, they just don't do it. They just don't, drag people through the mud. And, it seems like, we lose gracefully, as, but yeah, it just, no, I totally get what you're saying there. And
Well, and
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we want, everybody has to decide how they want the country run,
Mhm.
and I agree with you. Safety. I mean, we don't even have a country if we don't have the safety, and we don't have people that respect us. So I agree with that. Whoever can do that, that's great. You got to have safety, and then you've got to know how to run it. And if you think about it, a
Yeah.
big company, they have HR. They do have to worry about what they say when and how they treat
Uh-huh.
people. And they have all these aspects. They've got accounting, they've got people that are trying to figure out what's next for, whether it's products, whatever. A lot of that fits into our country. What are we going to do
Yeah.
next? How are we going to balance our budget? HR, how are we going to have social, how can we fund these social programs? Which are the most needed in our country, and which can we kick the can down the road? And I know that sounds bad, but we cannot fund everything.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we just, everybody talks about, things that they get free. Well, I mean, nothing's free. You guys both understand that. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that's free. You know, is when tax season comes around, you hear people who, don't understand the system, well, which I think is corrupt, by the way. But that's another topic. They talk about, oh, hey, I got $4,000. The government gave me $4,000 back. Well, first of all, they don't understand the system. It's what they have already paid for. They've overpaid. But it even goes further than that. Now, I mean, there are a lot of systems where people are getting money back that they didn't. They're getting way more back than they ever even paid into. And so, this stuff comes from somewhere, and it comes from, the others who are paying taxes. Not saying they're not paying their taxes, but, we see that a lot. And, the second thing, if you would have asked me what the second thing was, it would have been the financial, because those two, yeah, I mean, to me, top priority security, next is financial. And, I'm really excited about, this new government efficiency department and Elon Musk heading this up. I just get goosebumps thinking about it. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. And, this is obviously somebody who's very intelligent in business. I mean, very intelligent in general, but certainly in business. And, he's talking about how we can cut government waste and how we can stop wasting taxpayer money. I'm a generous person. I always try to help people out. But at the end of the day, I can't help everybody. And so, there are things that are going to have to be cut. And, I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out for our economy.
So with those cuts, do you think, or do you even agree with certain social programs? So let's say healthcare for all, or
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of some other things. I think that's the biggest one that I know of. Do you feel like if they cut some of those things, that could start benefiting the whole country even more if they could cut some of the waste and use it for its citizens, or is that not something on the radar?
I think it could. I don't know if that's their plan or not, but I think it certainly could. And, I really think that our medical system is really bad. I mean, we got people that can't afford
Absolutely.
needed medical procedures. And yeah, I mean, remember when the EpiPens went up to like, was it $2,500 a piece or something like that, just like overnight? Just stuff that was just greed. And hopefully a lot of that will change. But yeah, it very well could be that money can be shuffled in a different direction
So
to
you're
help
not
people who
totally,
generally.
oh, sorry. You're
No,
not
no, no. Go
totally
ahead.
against help for social programs. It's just that the
No.
wastefulness and
Yeah.
the spending. Yeah, my mom was she was a buyer for the government, and I remember a purchasing agent for the government, and I
Mhm.
remember one time, I think it was September, and she goes, "Yep, I got to go spend the money we have in our budget." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"What? That you're just making shit up to spend?" And
Yeah.
later she clarified that and was like, "Well, we had the must-haves and the, haves." But what
Mhm.
it sounded like was the must-haves and the wants, and then they went back and, spent the money on the wants. But I was thinking, just think if you have $1,000,000 in your budget that didn't get spent, and then you're trying to spend it in September, that's a
Mhm.
lot that could go to a different program that's really
Sure.
needed.
Yeah, and a lot of not just government, a lot of companies have that. If you don't spend it, you're not going to get it next year. And instead of taking that surplus, and I'm not a financial master, but I understand the concepts. And if you could take that money that you have left over and either roll it over or apply it to departments or areas that that really have a genuine need that aren't abusing their money, yeah, I think it would be better off. Would certainly be better off.
Going down the path of financials,
Mhm.
I did some research, and on a balanced budget, I was shocked to understand this, but it was I want to say the late 60s was the last time we had a balanced budget before Bill Clinton. Believe it or not, Bill Clinton was the only president in our lifetime that balanced the budget, and he
Yeah.
actually had, it was called Balance the Budget Act of 1997. So I like that aspect of what he did. And I'll be honest, I don't give a shit the Monica Lewinsky thing. I seriously don't. That doesn't affect the country as far as I see it, but I understand some people would see it will. I don't believe it will. But let's go down the path of a balanced budget. I'm going to say I don't think we'll ever see another balanced budget in our lifetime. What do you think, Paul?
I would agree with that. I don't think we will. We're so far in debt. And I heard a statistic that I think if we keep on this path, by was it 2030? I think it was. We're going to our interest payments on the deficit is going to be more than what we bring in. And
Absolutely agree.
at that point, you're bankrupt, and whoever you owe money to has every right to call in that debt, and that's not going to be a good day when it happens. So
Yeah, and 30% of that debt is foreign, and we'll have to pay that off, or wars are going to happen. So it'll be us internally that foot the bill.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and this is the reason I wanted to talk on this subject.
Yeah.
The reason I don't think we'll ever balance the budget is because it's not that a president gets in and doesn't want to. It's what are they not going to fund? Because that's the only way. If you've only got so much money, everybody wants it. So do we take money away from Social Security? And if that happens, that's going to kill that party. That's going to kill them trying to elect somebody next time. So nobody's going to get that vote, either Republican or Democrat. If they try and take it away from some of the social programs, if they try to take it away from Medicare, I mean, what I'm looking at, and I agree, I'm interested to see what Elon finds, because I don't think we can ever balance our budget again without one or the other side taking, I mean, it's going to be a total massacre for doing it, because
Right.
no one really wants us to balance that budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's kind of an interesting deal. I mean, you can quote me on this if you want. It's not my original quote, but taxation is theft. But there has to be money to run the country, and I think if everybody would, if they had a flat tax, whatever 10%, and everybody paid their 10%, no deductions, no loopholes, nothing. Everybody was paying their 10%. I think we could certainly work that way. But everybody was ragging on Trump. That was a big deal, getting his tax returns, and the way they came out was actually illegal. They were leaked out. But when people were saying, "Oh, he's not paying his fair share," well, what people don't understand, again, going back to people not understanding the system, he was able to take deductions and all of because of his businesses, etc. And and that's why he paid a lower rate than everybody else did, or others. I mean, it's anybody in business, if they're smart enough, are going to take advantage of every tax break they get. And so, but if they eliminated all of that and just brought it down to just a straight 10%, yeah, I think we could see it change. I think, but again, that's been talked about for years, and nothing's ever happened on it, and I don't think it ever will.
And see, that's where, going back to why you won't get somebody in that understands business, because every business follows or will take advantage of those loopholes. I would too.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that's in business would. I pay what I think I pay an insane amount. All these businesses think the same thing. And I'm going to give you another story, and I'm not going to say who it was because, for obvious reasons. But back when I was in college, I was in an accounting class, and the professor was telling us about, we were going through accounting and taxes and everything. There was one very, very big corporation in the U.S. that when it come tax time, they owed, which isn't a lot now, but back when I was going to college, they owed $52 million in taxes. And to just get around some of the taxes, the CEO, or yeah, I guess you would say the CEO of the company bought a credit card company and was able to use a credit card to pay their taxes, the $52 million bill, and the government had to give him 2.5% back. It wasn't illegal. I think it's brilliant.
It is.
It wasn't
It is.
illegal. And he did what he thought was right for his company, because it's like we talked about before. Every company is in it to make money. They've got shareholders expecting to make money. If they're giving all that money to the government, I'm not going to hold their stock, because their stock is going to go down. You have to generate more money every year.
Right.
So you have to find those advantages.
I think that's the difference. Trump actually used that when he was debating Hillary Clinton. You know, they brought up his tax burden, and he was like, of course I use the loopholes. So do the people who support her. And it's true, but that's, I think, where the difference comes in between a person who has corporations, who runs businesses, and a politician who has never done anything like that. The politician is looking at, how do I get more tax money in here? How do I get more tax money in here? Where, me running my own company, my own business, I have to look at constantly, how do I make my bottom line either look as low as possible, or in his case, how do I keep that money in people's pockets? That's what's really going to make him stand out. And I think that's an interesting, as far as the financial part goes, it's going to be interesting to see how that flips, or if it does, because of the mindset of a business person coming in comparison to a political person coming in or winning the election.
Yeah, and it's all about driving more revenue in the country. And it would be interesting if they would do some kind of a financial model to prove this. But if you give me 10% of my money back instead of what I'm paying, I get 10% more back, because I'm paying above 30% right now. If I got 10% back, I would say at least 8% of that I got back, I would use in the economy somewhere. I'm either going to take a trip, I'm either going to go to more restaurants, I'm going to buy something. So it does, all of that helps the economy, I believe. But it's easy for me to also say it helps the economy. I think someone like, hopefully, Elon Musk or whoever ends up in the Department of Efficiency, I hope that they can model that out and be able to show the difference, because I do think that if you lower your tax burden, it's going to stimulate the economy to grow your economy, to actually pull more revenue in.
Yeah. And, you see back when, anytime they do a tax rebate or something like that, people are they're doing renovations to their homes, or doing, nobody's taking that money and cashing that check and putting it in a mason jar and burying it in the backyard. They're putting it back into the economy. And so, it just.
And when it comes back in the economy, if I go to a department store, I'm automatically getting taxed on that money you get. They're going to get that money.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's whether I get something with it also, or if I'm giving it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I do like that. So I'm going to go down the path of a little bit on the social issues.
Okay.
I know that Democrats focus a lot on social issues. Republicans, I don't feel as much into that. There are some hardcore lines that a lot of them, especially conservative Republicans, hit. But Paul, what is your thoughts? And I know that on my 2 episodes ago, when I was just giving out some figures and what I looked at in politics, I said I think that a lot of these social issues should be determined at a state level. Agree, disagree? What do you think would happen if it was only at the state level?
1,000%. The vast majority of stuff should be at the state level. I think that's the way it was intended. Big government takes over and then makes everything a federal issue. So,
yeah, my thought was, and I'm not saying that this is the right approach, but if you're living in a state that the social issues don't fit what you want, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, and I know everybody will criticize me saying, well, it's easy for you to say that you can just move, but you can, and you can stay in the U.S. You could move 3 states over. You can get another job, and you could find and be around people that are more like-minded, I guess, because if you're going to be in the Bible Belt, we know what you're going to hear and what you're going to be up against all the time if you don't believe in that. And I'm all for people having a peaceful existence instead of having to fight with people all the time. And I think that some of these could move to Minnesota or down into, wherever it would be. Arizona
Yeah.
and maybe live a more peaceful life.
Yeah. And we're seeing in the cannabis issue right now, a lot of states have made it legal. It's not just for medicinal, but recreational. And I'll be, I'm not a cannabis user. I'm not against it. Everybody should have the right to do it, but I don't. But I don't judge anybody who does. I know, I've got a lot of friends that do. But when something like that is, it's still a controlled substance, and so if I'm going to go purchase a firearm, for example, I can do one of two things. I can either lie on that form. If I am caught, then that's perjury. So there's a different crime, or I can not apply to get a firearm. And so because it's a federal issue, even though all of these states have approved it, that's where you have federal overreach.
Yeah. And I agree. I think we have a lot of overreach. And the way they get around that, of course, they go back to the Constitution and they say, well, you could be at a state level, you're violating it by putting something in.
Mhm.
There, it's that they are concerned about, of course, states overreaching. But in the end, I think that I think we should figure out what are social issues, and we should allow, and I think it should be categorized. And states, you determine this for your state, and because we can we can elect in the mayor you want in your community that helps to drive it all the way up to your representatives that help drive it all the way up to your governor. And, that's where the change is happening. I agree with you on one thing for sure, Paul. I think that the president of the United States, when I look at him, I don't look at him to save any individual or state. I look at him or her to do what's right for the country on a global level. You have to make sure that we look and can function in the global economy and that we're safe, similar to what you just said. Other than that, I don't really want him reaching into the community I am telling me what I can and cannot
Right.
do.
Yeah. And feel free to edit this out if you feel that it's best, and I'm okay with that. But the recent overturn of Roe versus Wade, it's not making abortions illegal. It's just pushing it back to the states. Now, a lot of the states have said, this is, and I'll agree. I think I'm not judgmental at all, but I mean, it's a very barbaric process. I know people who have had it done, and I don't judge them for it. I mean, they had, whatever they felt they needed to do it, but it is a barbaric process, but it's something that the states should be, they should be making that decision. Is it legal in this state? And so, yeah, again, if you are at a point where you need or want that, there are other states that outside of Missouri, there's other states that do that. But yeah, it should be a state. And actually, it changed over this last election. They voted to to accept here in Missouri. So. Yeah, it's just, it's something that needs to be decided at the state level. Just most things need to be decided there. So,
Do you have more
All right.
questions?
I've got another one. So I just, let's see, it was 2 weekends ago. I went and sat down with a restaurant owner, and it was a really great conversation. I sat down with this individual that has owned a restaurant for, owned and managed probably since they got out of high school, but I bet they've owned a restaurant for 25 years now. And we started talking about, and I know I'll get beat up on this too, but we started talking about the minimum wage that passed, the increase of the minimum wage. And we started talking about the effects. And, the problem is right now, it's so interesting. The lady that I was talking to said, every time I raise my price on my menu, everybody in this town knows who owns it. And she also works there most of the time. So you can go see her and, she's very friendly. But she said, you don't know how much I get criticized if I raise anything on my menu. That's the first problem. But of course, now she is really going to have to pay people more. But she said, worse than that, she said, I don't think some of what we do, even at a state level, we understand, and they need to talk with some of our owners of these organizations. But she said, now she has to give, if this ends up going into law, she has to give, I believe it is every 30 hours, she has to give 1 hour of time off as far as sick pay. And she said, what's going to happen? I know what's going to happen. She said, within 9 months, she said, I'm going to end up having people that have at least a day, if not more than that, worth of sick pay that I have to pay them. 2 of them could be cooks and just call in and say, I'm sick tomorrow. She said, what am I supposed to do? Because now I've got to pay them because they're sick. And I do understand. But she said, what's going to happen? This is going to put her in such a predicament because, with the waiting staff that she has and the cooks in the back and stuff like that. She said, we run a very lean organization. She said, I can't just hire double the amount of people to cover everybody. So she said, it's going to raise the price on the menus. And she said, it's going to cause a lot of these companies to not be able to keep in business because they don't understand what that impact's going to look like 6 months down the road.
Right.
So right now, is she not paying? I need to understand this because in my head, I'm going through this. Is she not paying?
Yes, she pays minimum wage.
But what I mean, so if they take a sick day, they just don't get paid.
Correct. If you're sick, you don't get. She gives vacations, and a lot of places are set up this way. Most manufacturing facilities, I believe, are set up this way. Most don't get paid sick pay. If you're sick, that's fine. You're sick, but you have to take the hit on your check.
So you take vacation
the
day,
biggest
that kind
concern,
of thing instead?
Yeah, you can. So the big concern is people will really use this as more vacation time instead of sick. They won't use it if they're sick. They're just going to decide, well, on a Monday, well, I don't really want to go in. And at least with vacation, you can require somebody to give you notice when that vacation is so you can schedule properly. They're going to, and a lot of people will use this to their advantage. They just decide they had a rough weekend and on Monday they don't want to come to work. If they've got enough paid time in, they will be able to use that as a sick day. And if you've got several people doing that, especially, in some of these smaller restaurants, that's going to be very, very tough for them to keep up with.
Yeah.
But that's part of the risk of being a business owner, because here's my thought on it. I have to be prepared for anything that happens in my business. And if I,
Agreed.
if I needed to step in and take over that cooking aspect, that's what's going to have to happen, because we still need to take care of people. I mean, I think that's the thing for me that I'm getting really kind of concerned with is I look at my kids who are 24 and 25, and to make a living wage is brutal in this day and age to get health care. I mean, I fought my way to do it at that age, but I was able to. These kids are fighting their way, and they just keep clawing and keep clawing and keep clawing. And so I think we also need to not only look at the profitability of everything, but we also need to look at taking care of our citizens. And I think that's something that the hope is that changes in the government that Trump is taking over. And I know a lot of people are like, well, he screws people. He's been in lawsuits. And in my industry, we have a saying that if you're not in a lawsuit, you're not big enough or you're not doing your job right. Because,
Right.
I mean, in the rental business, somebody's always suing you. A tenant thinks you haven't done something right or whatever. So I don't look at it the same, but I do want to see our citizens start being taken care of. And I think the generation under us, what are they? The Gen X? What are they now?
No, we're Gen X.
Z?
Okay.
We're Gen X. It's Gen Z.
Whatever they are. They, they're having a hard time making it. I mean, my kids don't want to live with me. They want to be independent, and yet they have to give up a lot just to be out on their own.
And I don't know if this is possible or not, but I do believe that there's jobs that could and should be out there for part-time kids that's in college or that is in high school where they could pay less for these people. Where I'm going, I think there's jobs that need to be done and should be for those type of individuals that don't require that. I think that there's a point in time whenever you hit 24 or 25 that you have to step up and say, I've got to have, I'm going to say a big boy job, but I'm telling you right now, manufacturing jobs pay decent wages. They really do. When I say decent, they pay a wage that you can do that. Now, I can choose to go down here and work at the convenience store, but come on. I mean, if I'm going to work at the convenience store, that's in my mindset. I have to think, well, that's going to be a convenience store
Right.
wage. It can't be the exact same as if I'm going to be doing the barrels at Independent Stave Company and everywhere else. I can make that choice.
Mhm.
If I don't want to do that type of work, that's fine. But realize the type of work pays the wage.
Yeah.
That's where I'm concerned. I don't think we're going to have any jobs to where you can have a convenience store or something like that, be able to keep up with the cost it's going to be with them. I'm just really concerned going forward.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is because I see both sides of that argument.
I'm right.
You know, uh,
Everybody's supposed to say yes, dear.
that's yes, dear, yes, dear. So, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a tough, and I mean, I'm not a business owner, so I don't have to deal with that. But it's, if I were, yeah, I don't know, it's a tough call. It's tough, because certainly you need to be, humane in treating your
I agree.
employees, and they, because these are people that, I mean, we, those of us who, with, big people responsibilities and jobs and whatever. I mean, we understand, a lot of the complexities, but, it's not, and that's not to diminish, these, the gas station worker or the convenience store worker. It's not to diminish their
not at
jobs because, somebody needs to do those jobs. We need somebody there doing them. And, like we have a situation where, we have a sanitation guy that does a lot of our washing and sanitizing of our equipment. And, that's a very important job, because if we, we don't decontaminate our trailers properly, I mean, we could spread salmonella, or something else. And so we need that job. But at the same time, that's not, that pay scale is not something that is going to be deemed highly, a high paying job. It's a menial task, so to speak. And so, not diminishing the task, but, it's a tough call. Definitely a tough call.
Yeah, I guess I just think that we are going to have some jobs out there that fit into a bracket where it doesn't require that, because we do look at maybe, kids being able to fill that role or something.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I do want to pay people. I want everybody to be, be able to afford rent and everything else. So I don't know the answer to it. So I know we're almost out of time, and I wanted to, for me, my last question, I want you to paint the vision of what you think if Trump was able to do what he says he can do in the next 4 years. What's the next 4 years going to look like in your mind?
I think the next 4 years, especially, I think the first year specifically, I think is going to be really tough because he's going to be going in trying to undo a lot of the stuff that, redo some of the stuff that was undone with the stuff he did. If that makes sense there. We're not trying to double talk there, but, the first year is going to be tough because he's, trying to make a lot of these changes, the changes as he's talking about, with the economy, and then just the interaction of his cabinet. His cabinet members are all new people that, he wasn't like their holdovers or, from his previous presidency. So, just working with that and making everything gel, I think, it's going to be a challenge. But after that, if he can nail down and start doing some of the things that he's talking about with the economy, I think we're going to see, the respect of other countries in the world towards us. I think we're going to see that increase. We saw it increase before. I think we're going to see it increase again. And I think, the economy at some point is going to level out, and I think we're going to see, $1.50 gallon of gas again. So,
Connie.
Well, I have no more questions. I mean, I'm not a political person. I definitely am. I'm just not a political person, and I probably should do a lot more research than I do. But I really appreciate you showing the conservative side and your thoughts on that. And yeah, we really, really appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Connie, I think that's it for us for this week. I hope everybody has a good week.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Our Life Beyond. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and inspiring, or at least brought a smile to your day. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. For more information, resources, or show notes, visit our website at ourlifebeyond.com. You can also follow us on social media. Search for us on Facebook at Our Life Beyond. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, so feel free to reach out with your questions, comments, or suggestions through our Contact Us page at ourlifebeyond.com or on social media. And once again, thank you for joining us on this journey. Till next time, remember, life beyond any challenge is possible, and we're here to navigate it with you. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.